Is it good?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Reed Hansen. I am a sophomore from Austin, Texas, and I am currently at Hope College as an overnight host, hosting Cameron Smith. So, good stuff.
Yeah, so Reed, the book The Help is written from the perspective of three different people, two of which are black African American, or black maids.
Uh huh.
Uh,
Uh huh.
Seeing as the book was written by a white woman, what do you think might be the problems with that, or what possible benefits?
Okay. I think it's fine. Um, I think that from what I remember, she seemed to portray the black maids in a positive light, and I think that there's not a big problem with that. I think that one of the things that could be obviously some issue is that since she was written by a white woman, she can't fully relate to kind of their struggles. She's writing it from her own perspective, and I'm not gonna say anything too terrible, but I just think that as kind of like as a dominant culture and people group in society, we definitely have certain things and certain um, blessings and certain, I guess, privileges that other people certain don't have. Kind of like in Roman society. I'm a classics major, and so in ancient Rome, the Romans were the dominant culture. They enjoyed a lot of different, privileges for being the dominant culture. They could feel more comfortable about themselves and whatnot. And so a lot of people, like the Egyptians, the Greeks, Gauls from France, from Spain, from the Africans, from the subjugated parts of the empire. I mean, they were kind of conquered people. They didn't exactly have as many freedoms as Roman citizens would have, and so I think it's kind of similar in that. But I definitely think that it was good of her to write a book about empowering black maids in society, because I feel like they had a long history of that, especially with the slave trade and whatnot, and so writing it from their perspective, which takes up a majority of the book, I think is really powerful to give them a voice.
Yeah. So, in what ways do you think the civil rights movement has improved society, and in what ways do you think society still has a ways to go?
So, what's really encouraging to me is, obviously Martin Luther King Jr. His ability to preach wonderful, powerful, convicting sermons was just absolutely amazing. And I think that one of the things that was really improved in the civil rights movement in the 60s is gave people a more cosmopolitan approach. Because if you think about it, this kingdom we're called to serve, God's kingdom isn't just a bunch of white people. It's people from all tribes, all tongues, and all nations. So that includes, African Americans in the South. That includes Africans from Africa. That includes people from the Middle East, people from Europe, Asia, everywhere. And so I think that giving people a more cosmopolitan, universal approach to this kingdom, this ministry, this great commission of ours is not supposed to be kept to ourselves. And so people have now been more exposed to other cultures and whatnot. And so I think one of the things that the civil rights movement did really well is open our minds to the world outside. One of the biggest commandments Jesus gave was to worship the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And so the civil rights movement really made a big thing of treating other people who have different skin colors as neighbor. And yet at the same time, there's still a lot of just problems. My stepdad actually does ministry with that. He works at something called the Austin Bridge Builders Alliance, or ABBA for short. And so one of the things they do is they do outreach to a lot of black churches and black communities that have been kind of affected by gentrification, because that's a pretty big issue in East Austin now. East Austin was a culturally black and Hispanic majority part of the city, but a lot of younger, white millennials are coming in and raising property taxes, which makes it the black and Hispanic communities can't really pay to live there, so they have to move out. And so my stepdad does a lot of stuff to kind of bridge the obviously do bridge building stuff between a lot of the white churches and the black churches. If you have time, there's a really, really powerful sermon that Matt Chandler gave us, 30 minutes. He gave it on Martin Luther King Jr.'s anniversary of his assassination. I think this was back in February of 2018, and it was really good. And one of the things that he really talked about was how black churches, when they're in partnership with white churches, can be kind of viewed as like a little brother. Just kind of, oh, you need more help. We're coming and we're going to help you. And it's not like this equal coming together of two churches to do a project. It's more of the white church kind of feels like, I'm not going to say they have a need. I'm not going to say they're going to be outright saying, oh, you need help in this. But definitely like black churches can be kind of viewed as less able to do something. And so Matt Chandler is really harping on that about how we just have to stop. We have to get that out of our minds. And I think that something that the civil rights movement still, what more can be done about civil rights is definitely a lot of relations in the churches.
Yeah.
And so just kind of going off of what Matt Chandler was talking about, one of the things he really made mention to was how white evangelical pastors like himself have to say something about it. They have to say that there's still a lot of things that need to be done, including race relations and meeting with other people, because this is true from all across societies, all across the world, from ancient Greece to ancient Rome to even the Chinese, the Han Chinese, and a bunch of dynasties there, is that people tend to situate themselves with people who are like them, similar skin color, similar interests, similar background, and which is, it's not a bad thing to do that, but if you use it and your heart is twisted and we use it to satisfy our needs and we don't use it to expand the kingdom, then that's a problem. And so I think one thing that especially the dominant culture in society, which is that of Caucasian white culture, is that they need to realize that, hey, we are the dominant society. We have a lot of blessings of being that. We can meet other people who are like us because they're everywhere. But at the same time, we need to realize that there are people out there who aren't as fortunate as we are. And so being able to recognize all of the things we have, like, for example, even though I went to public school growing up, my public schools were, on average, a lot, not well funded, but just better quality of teachers than a lot of the schools in the eastern part of the school district. And so even in a progressive city like Austin, that was still kind of an issue. That train is really loud. You can just edit this part out. Get a soundware in there. But so yeah, no, and so not only that, but also in terms of applying for college, a lot of I remember a lot of my ACT prep courses I took junior and senior year of high school were offered to people who could pay for it and who knew that it existed from like family connections and whatnot. And a lot of times, black people and Hispanics and minorities don't really know anybody who does that, and they don't really have as many connections as the dominant culture does. And so I think it's important for the white culture and white Americans to realize that, hey, we have such great gifts, but we have to use them not to advance ourselves, but to minister to those who are less fortunate than us. And so I think that's one of the big things that still needs to be done for civil rights and whatnot.
That's great.
Thank you.
And lastly, do you think it is better or more important to act colorblind or to act and interact with people recognizing the racial differences?
I think it's more important to recognize racial differences. I think that God has made people in His image, and I think that acting colorblind, while that means that you're trying not to focus on it, you're kind of taking away a big part of who they are. I think that if I was talking with a black person, I kind of looked at him colorblind, which is fine. Just I want to create a meritocracy. I'm all for that. I believe that people should be rewarded for the work and the efficiency in which they go about doing their work. But at the same time, I think that, you know, God has given each member of His creation this beautiful gift. He's given people a culture and a race and a society, and He's given people such wonderful things to advance His kingdom. And so I think that looking at them and ignoring their skin color and ignoring all that, I think it's just kind of it can be detrimental. I think that if people are viewed as colorblind, well, then I know you don't want to keep that in mind, don't want to base decisions around that, but at the same time, you're ignoring a huge part of what somebody is because, race is more than skin color, it's culture. And so ignoring that, I think, can be a problem. So I think definitely it's more important to view somebody and be sensitive of, their skin color than just being colorblind. So, yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah.